Loss comes in many forms, and usually in unexpected ways. It can be devastating, leaving you facing an uphill struggle to go on with life without someone you thought would always be there. But life does go on, and even in the deepest despair, we can find hope. Welcome to Grief Relief with your hosts, Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley, brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. And now here's Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi.
Welcome to our show. I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley with my co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, this is really an important show today, and it's really important because we have the Open to Hope website, and we have over 500,000 people visiting our site every year looking for hope after loss. And we found that the second thing most searched for on our site is parent loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people are losing their parents at all ages.
That's right, and they're looking for that kind of information on the show. So we wanted to try to do more shows on parent loss because we know that you're looking for it out there. And now we're going to meet Antonio.
Yes.
You haven't met him. I have, Heidi. Well, you met him here, but I spent some time with him at the ADAC conference, Association of Death Educators. So got to know him a little bit. He's a fabulous guy, and I know you're going to enjoy meeting him. And we're going to have a roll-in of him talking about his yoga and his philosophy, and then we'll meet him in person.
Okay.
All right.
My mom and I were truly good friends. And when she died of a stroke at the age of 54, I was pushed into a split personality disorder that allowed me to not get in touch with my grief. When 2.5 years later I was finally able to do so, one of my ribs had created a calcification in the place where it meets the sternum bone, much like those the bones create after a fracture to strengthen the skeleton. I have not had an accident. And yet, what my body was expressing was quite clear. I had a broken heart. A few years later, my teacher and mentor, Lynn Prashant, an outstanding therapist from the San Francisco Bay Area, asked me to design a routine with yoga exercises to address the physical symptoms of grief. I was thrilled, hearing someone acknowledge that grief deeply impacts also the body. And so I created the Yoga for Grief Relief program. My program is not intended to help individuals not feel. Quite the opposite. It helps grievers be in touch with their full palette of symptoms of grief so they can understand and also determine that new identity that emerges after an important loss. As in many other moments in my life, yoga assisted me at a time of extreme difficulty with that deep and insightful knowledge that put me a step closer to my spirit. I am Antonio Sausys.
All right, Heidi. Well, let's meet Antonio.
Okay.
Hey, Antonio.
Hey, Antonio.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, Gloria. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you.
Hello.
Well, Antonio, I love what you said about the palette. I think that is so great because you think of the palette of all the things about our life. It's not just one thing. Sometimes you think about grief as some big black hole that you fall into, and you tend to kind of put everything in the hole, but that's not really the way it is it? It's here and there and what we miss and that kind of thing.
And what's worse is that perhaps people just think that grief is associated with sadness, and that's all it happens. And the truth is that grief affects the mind, the body, and the spirit in particular ways. And so that's why I think it presents such a wide palette of feelings and emotions and sensations that unless addressed properly and in their entirety, then you're always missing one part.
Now, you didn't always know this, though. After your mom died, you really were close to her, and she was quite a character. I've seen some of her pictures, and quite a charmer.
She was.
And you were really close to her, and it just fractured you.
It did. And what is amazing is that I really managed to not feel, or to feel very little. My experience was that when the pain of grief would come, and this usually would be in the morning as you wake up, as it usually happens, and you realize your new reality, the pain would come, and I would just switch, like with a little switcher. And under the premise that she didn't bring me up to be a sad creature crying in the corners, here I was dancing,
Yeah,
going
and
out
where
with
were you?
girls.
Where were you living then?
This was down in Uruguay,
Uruguay.
Yes,
So
Uruguay,
and you were
South
so you were
America.
dancing and.
Yeah, dancing, straight A's at college, everything fine until 2.5 years later, when I finally was able to get in touch. But then my body had created this spur, this calcification, and
Now, how did you find yoga?
Well, I had found yoga before from a spiritual standpoint. Most of my friends, when I was 20, right after my mom died, were devotees of Maharaji, a master from India, but that lives here in Malibu. And they all shared this amazing quality that while being able to be up for normal teenage things or young men things, at the same time they had this depth and this ability to get in touch with some of these aspects of life, the spiritual aspects. So I was interested in what they had that I didn't. So I got the techniques, the meditation techniques. From a physical standpoint, I was doing Olympic gymnastics at the YMCA. There was this famous yoga class that all the pretty women were going to. So I decided to go, and I put a vertebra out of place. And the second time I went there, the teacher said, "But you seem to do things pretty well. How long have you been practicing it?" This is my second time. He said, "What? This is a teacher's training course." So that's what, and he said, "Stay, I'll put your vertebra back in place." So, of course, that put me in the center of the class for 2 months. I said, yes, I'll do it. And I learned firsthand the effects of yoga therapy.
How did you meet Lynn? Croissant?
That was years after when she was in South America directing a health spa. And they needed a yoga teacher, so I was directed to her. I was referred to her. We met. And in the course of the first conversation, she was so excited. And she said, "Oh, could you design a routine," as I said in the bureau. And I was impressed because people don't think that grief happens in the body, and it does.
Right. Okay, so here I am. I've just lost a parent, and what can I do? I'm feeling like really inward.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
One of the things you need to do is to open.
Just open.
To start opening. And I wouldn't suggest as it happens, you know, some therapists see an anxious individual and they say, "Calm down, breathe deeply." That's cruel because a person who's anxious can't calm down and breathe. So I wouldn't say just open, but that's the first thing you need to do. To stretch the pectoral muscles in a way that all the type of emotions that are contained or held in those muscles can experience a change as your muscles do. And then if you can follow up with that change and work with it, then you start operating a change in your process.
Well, and I know sometimes when people do heart openers in yoga and they've had a loss, all of a sudden they'll start to cry.
Well, that's why.
Okay.
Precisely,
because
that's
they're
why.
opening the heart?
Because they're opening the heart, and because our bodies naturally, our bodies are master survivors.
Right.
So when we have a situation as losses, which puts you sometimes at the edge of your survival mechanisms and skills, we tend to close up and protect the inner organs and the vital organs that carry vital functions. And so also because grief is related to the heart, to the emotional heart, and for yoga to Anahat chakra, or the place where the energy of emotional bonding lives in the body. When we have a problem with that, we tend to close.
Okay, now I know we can find you. We love the internet. We can find you on the internet.
You can. yogaforgriefrelief.com.
Okay, yogaforgriefrelief.com.
This has been Grief Relief, hosted by the mother-daughter team of Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi Horsley. This show's been brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. Be sure to visit Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi at opentohope.com, where you can listen to radio programs, watch past episodes of Grief Relief, read articles, and view books. You can also join them on Twitter and Facebook and put your events on their international calendar. Thanks for watching, and remember, others have been there and made it, and you can too.